Welcome, everyone, to AWS On Air. Today is Thursday, Jeff. It's hard to believe that we're already at Thursday, I know, here. What do you think?
Well, I can tell by how bad my feet and knees hurt that I think it's Thursday because they hurt really bad after a whole week here at reInvent. We're live here in Las Vegas for reInvent 2024 in art. Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. And normally we have a lot of people walking behind us, and we're here so early.
That's right.
We've beat everyone here.
Well, it turns out the expo, folks, doesn't actually open until after Werner's keynote
What
around 10 o'clock.
Here?
I know. But, you know, we have something really fun to start the day talking about here as well, which I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah, awesome.
So maybe we should introduce our guest who's sitting here quietly by us. James?
Yeah, how's it going? Just I suppose a quick intro. I help manage a lot of the teams that do the development and design and research for our web consoles. So specifically the kind of compute and networking consoles. Been here about 8 years doing this.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for coming. And with that, we're obviously gonna be talking about the console. I think for those who are new here, but I think most of you have had some experience with AWS, you know, the console is pretty much everyone's first interaction with AWS. It's kind of where everyone gets started.
Yep.
And we're continuing to try to make the experience of using the console even easier to use, and that's kind of our goal with what we're planning to talk about here as well.
Yeah, and so I'm a solutions architect helping the Air Force, the United States Air Force, and something I talk about all the time comes up with every customer conversation is, how do I choose what are all these instance families, and what does 12XL mean? What does N mean? What does uppercase A mean? Stuff like that. And, you know, we know that stuff because we've studied it a lot, but it sounds like we have something that's going to help customers out.
We do. So I think maybe first we should, for those who don't know, we have about 850 plus instances, right?
Crazy.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's a brilliant selection, right? I mean, like there's an instance for every job.
Right. But the point is there's an instance for every job, but at the same time, that can mean, how do you figure out, where do you get started? And we get a lot of feedback from customers who say, exactly how do I create or how do I use an instance, and which instance do I go out and use with that? Yeah. And folks like the three of us know kind of the decoder ring of sorts associated with that of the existing instances that are out there. And maybe we should show a little bit of what we're going to do, but then we're trying to eliminate the need for you to have to actually learn that decoder ring. Yeah. So to the point of, you know, we have an instance that's 12XL or something like that. You know, from our instance, let's take the name C8G.extra large. That's our instance name. And that extra large is the t-shirt size, right, that we call it. And that corresponds to the vCPU to memory ratio.
Right.
In the case of my C8G that I took here, C is a compute instance. So it's a vCPU to memory is 2:1 as the ratio there. And
A means?
Well, G, the 8. 8 is the...
I thought you said CA.
8. No, C8.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the 8 is 8th generation.
8th generation. So you always want to look for the highest number because typically they're the cheapest.
Yeah. Or they usually are the most recent generation and the highest performance. In this case, 8, the most recent generation, and then G is Graviton, so the most recent generation of Graviton as well. And before we show you how you can find out instances in Dakota, I will also just give a plug for Graviton, as Dave Brown, one of the VP who runs EC2, was saying earlier this week. More than 50% of new CPU workloads have been driven on Graviton since 2023, which is an incredible number out there. It just shows the popularity and the usage of Graviton instances here across the board. So maybe the next thing we should do is talk about Instance Finder here to show people and show a little bit of the console. So James, why don't we talk about that?
And James, really quick, I loved what you said, there's an instance for every job, because that aligns with a lot of our messaging. We say with databases, use the right database for the right job, use the right tool for the right job. With Bedrock, we're saying use the right model for the right job. And for instances, it's no different. that we have a lot of different choices, and we want customers to use the right instance for the right job.
Yeah, broad selections, and just an incredible value that we're able to bring, right?
Right.
But the last thing we want to do is force everyone to learn all of the kind of inside baseball, and to try and figure out how to kind of make these selections.
Because that's our job.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no.
I mean, as a customer, you're just coming in with a use case, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got a job to get done, and you do want to find as quickly as possible without having to go and study 850 different instances.
Yeah. And I think that the other thing is this is an incredible way to take advantage of just natural language in the first place
Completely.
to give us information. And the truth is we'll demo here, but the more information, the more detailed you are, and the more information you provide, the better our responses are as well. So don't kind of fear typing in something, super detailed, because that's what we're trying to do. The more information you give us. So let's show people how to access this a little bit as well. James.
Yeah, so if we have a look on screen, we've got our instance finder, which is this is a great way to kind of trigger it from Q directly, right? So this is adding your natural language in there, just talking about your use case in the most kind of natural way to yourself. And
to Art's point about the management console being everyone's kind of first foray into AWS, this screen particularly is especially everyone's first.
That's right.
Because everyone's first thing they do is launch an EC2. So this is where it starts for everybody.
100%. And it's not. There's various access points that we kind of put this user experience enhancements into, but directly from Q is probably one of the easiest, more pervasive ways to do this. So just triggering Q, starting to bring up like your use case. We extract out of that the various attributes to try and understand what dimensions we're looking at across all those instances, and then we make recommendations. In this case, you're looking at a machine learning model, for a high performance kind of looking for a high performance EC2 instance, and we made these recommendations, right? Beyond just kind of listing out those instance families, we're giving you additional context, teaching you about why or kind of just giving you the rationale of why we chose those things.
Right.
And that just goes to help you in making your further decisions, because it doesn't end here, right? Like, you need to go and look at the instance types and start to compare those and start to reason about them.
I think part of that is this isn't, we don't believe this is the end all be all here, that we're providing a perfect recommendation. A recommendation is triggered off of the information you gave us. Plus, now we're giving you information so that you can decide like which of our recommendations is most applicable for you. So for those who are kind of new to this space, the upper right here, where our blue circle is where you would click to start Q for those who haven't actually used Q. I will also mention my favorite word here is this is free to get started with. So this is part of the free tier for those who haven't used or interfaced with Q. And we highly encourage you to get started with this. It doesn't require that you actually have to do anything or pay anything just yet to get started with this.
From the chat, we have Ganesh from the chat saying he's thinking about just what if when we get to the typing in, what if we type in and we just use serverless and not worry about all this stuff? So then maybe that's something we could talk about. But Ganesh, thanks for posting in the chat.
But I think it's also one of the power of having this in Q, right? We have that full access across AWS, and you're able to kind of start to reason about it. So all of the information that is coming up there, you can start to query that with Q and start to have that discussion and start to help use Q to be able to kind of isolate, is this even the right service for you, right?
Yeah, so Ganesh, put that in Q, not necessarily in instance finder, but cool.
But they're, as we are showing here, they're kind of closely attached.
Yeah.
So somebody, you could, and as James was mentioning, you can actually feed any further questions back into Q.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
I think the next thing is we have the recommendations here. You could click here on the instance finder to get started. But we also have a secondary entry point, right, James?
So this is depends on how you want to do this, right? But looking at Q directly, you can go and use your natural language. But if you want to kind of use the knobs and buttons to kind of dial this in specifically, you can use the get info, which is on the EC2 instance wizard. You click on that, and you'll bring up a little selection here where you can kind of choose your workload type, your use case specifically, and if there's anything that's really kind of important to you, like your CPU manufacturer. In the advanced parameters, there's a bunch of different things in there, like that will help you kind of further enhance your actual selection. And that's going to just do exactly the same thing, right? So we'll again kind of like depending on what your selection is, will output a very similar kind of list of kind of instances, and then the rationale behind those as well.
And I want to mention one other thing is if you're on that prior screen there, you don't have to feel obligated to fill in every single field as well. We will still provide a recommendation to you. So fill in kind of as much as you want or as little as you want type thing here, because we still will provide a detailed recommendation with the same kind of additional information here to give you kind of a better story.
One thing I wanted to call out, and we did mention this up front, is like this is not the silver bullet for everything, right? So the leave feedback in the bottom left-hand corner there, please use that. This is something that we are developing consistently. We're looking at that feedback and we're taking that into consideration as we develop this further. Right?
And we've been talking about, customers having to learn all this. Look, this is helping everyone learn this. If you read through this, and the more you use this, you're going to start learning this naturally.
Yeah,
it's a two-way street. You're learning some information here, and then you can decide to what instances to get started with. I think it makes it even easier. But as we said in our session yesterday, I highly encourage people to give us feedback. That's how we make the recommendations better. And to someone who had asked us the question about serverless, this is all part of Q, so you can easily ask questions or include the serverless component as you go through this. So the other thing is that we have tried to make the instance selection even easier for you. The other thing is that a lot of our customers use the console, as we mentioned, as their starting point. But a lot of customers use the console as an incredible way to do prototyping as well. But if anyone is like me, sometimes you go in and you think you're doing something, you're fiddling around, and you realize you hit upon a success story, and maybe you don't remember exactly how to replicate or exactly what you wanted to replicate here. So we talked about in preview last year something called console to code, where we will help you record actions that are in the console. And we wanted to demonstrate that now that it has gone GA and live here, to talk to people about how you can use that to do it. So let's talk a little bit about console to code as well.
Yeah. So again, like a few different access points, but the most basic one you should absolutely go and test out is just generating the code for your instance. And one of the main kind of value propositions of the console, where it does a really good job, is selecting sensible defaults, potentially adding like a bunch of different workflows, like multiple API calls to make you successful, to simplify just getting an instance up and running. And the top customer request has always been like, what did the console do to generate that instance? Or you just did this awesome thing. How can I learn how to do that? What did you actually do to do that? So console code is kind of the answer to that. And effectively just hitting that preview code in the launch instance wizard will generate in console code on the right-hand side there. You'll see all of the CLI commands that we use in the console to create that instance, or about to create that instance. The great thing about this is that you actually don't even have to launch the instance to get this code, right? So this is prior to launch, you get this. So if it's a particularly expensive instance or something you don't want to necessarily create, you can get around that by kind of generating that code, right?
Also, the beauty of getting this code, Jeff, is that you now have the code, and we've given you some information about it. You could even put some of this back into Q, but I view this as a launch starting point as well, and you can now use this to maybe even modify the code that you have.
Again, learning. It's a learning feedback, because if you're getting in the CloudFront or infrastructure as code, which everyone is, you can use this tool. Okay, let's build this, and let me look at the code that it created. And okay, I see these tags here. I see how to choose EBS, and I see how to do this. So then let me send this over to my devs and have them finish it, or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, there's always been this kind of chasm of like doing this prototyping in the console, and then going, oh, how do I actually get this into infrastructure as code? And so the console code really fits into that gap really nicely. But again, to your point, this is a great enabler, right? This is really a way to kind of supercharge your experience. It's not going to make those decisions for you. You still need to take this and go and customize that. The generate CDK here, so there's a various drop downs that you can use where you'll use Q and the LLM to be able to translate that the CLI commands into various formats for you. And that becomes a really good starting position for you to kind of take that in whatever kind of format that you're looking for, and then to start to enhance that and use that in your actual code.
What are the options for the formats?
Yeah, so we've got various kind of Python and a lot of the kind of popular ones up there. We are adding a bunch there all the time. So again, I'm just going to plug, please send us feedback. If there's something specifically that you want to kind of see up there, leave a comment. We'll pick that up. And that's just something we're going to start to prioritize in our backlog.
Yeah, I think sorry, Jeff, to interrupt you. If you were here with us when we launched this, we've actually continuously already been improving this based upon that feedback that people provided.
Great.
Like, the most popular code that I want, or, tell us what you're interested in, and we'll kind of add it to our list of work product to fix.
100%. So you'll see TypeScript and a bunch of those popular ones up in there that you can start to use, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off, Jeff.
No, I was just, it's not only, you brought up CDK code. Can you choose like CloudFormation, like specifically?
Not directly, but I think that sounds like a great feedback.
Right,
You should totally add that into the console right now.
Give me a minute.
Yeah. So,
I was going to say, because CDK is growing in popularity, and most folks are skipping over I am a non-developer, so that does a little bit of coding, and so I would use CloudFormation straight, but a real developer would probably use CDK. So you guys are probably on the way there.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an area that we want to develop in, right? And so, we're getting great feedback from customers that they want us to take this further. So, this is already being successful. There's a lot of awesome things in here that are helping. And I think that's just a great position for us to be in, because it just means, let's keep expanding. Just pull on the lever
And the idea isn't that this is as James says, is the end-all be-all, because obviously, you're giving us ideas just as we're here, but, this helps kind of improve what we're doing as well. So this is a genuine space for additional feedback as well. So I think we want to cover a little bit more about how kind of people can access some of the instance stuff as well, James.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of enhancements we've made to help you with your instance selection through the console. So I just wanted to kind of showcase a couple as we go through here. Yeah. So attribute-based instance selection, if this is not something you're familiar with, you should absolutely go and find out and read up a little bit more about this. But this is something we make a little bit easier in the console. So this is a great way, if you're working with Spot autoscaling, to be a lot more successful with giving a rules or kind of set of guidelines to the system to allow it to choose instances on your behalf based on the kind of provisions or the guardrails that you put around it. And that really just makes might make you a lot more successful in finding cheaper instances in some cases, or being a little bit more available, less kind of interruptions, or if you just always want to have the latest generation instance for your rather than hard coding in a specific instance, this is a great mechanism for you to use, right? So in the console here, you'll see this is actually in the launch templates experience. We've just gone into the advanced section of the instance type selection, and you'll see there you can actually start to choose attributes like the number of vCPUs or the amount of memory that you want in there. There might be the CPU manufacturer, and there's just a full list. So we've got numerous kind of attributes that you can add in there. What the instance, the console does, though, if you have a look right at the bottom there, resulting instance types, what it does is it starts to show you exactly the kind of instances that range will elicit, and that's just going to help you kind of reason about it, and from a human perspective to understand, does this kind of look right? Is this kind of the range that I'm looking for?
And you can real-time, Jeff, modify what's happening here on screen. So we show, in this case, you needed 32 vCPUs and a minimum of 64 megabits of memory here. But you can actually modify I've used this before when you can actually, when you start walking through here and make changes, that list of those 11 down there will change, maybe expand or contract as you do this. So you see the list and you're like, okay, wait a minute, I see 12XL. You can provide additional information, or maybe select a manufacturer saying, I want to do Graviton only type thing, and it'll narrow the list down a little bit further as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other thing I think that we were talking to customers customers yesterday about this is also showcasing, the Spot information as well. So for those who don't know, Spot is a pricing plan that we have, and where we sell surplus capacity to you at discounted prices. And using this instance finder will help you and help you figure out like where and when you can access it and the price across the globe.
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of point of time decisions where if you're selecting an instance in the console, we'll bring up a little bit of user experience in there that can help you. So this particular one that we're looking at here now is just helping you reason about the kind of the pricing differences with a Spot instance, right? It's the same instance, but depending on the availability zone that you're picking, the price is going to change. And so we just created this useful little widget for you to kind of look at, to reason about that, to make those kind of selections, to kind of just see where the cheapest one is. And we actually highlighted that in the information at the bottom of the graphic there as well, cheapest. So there's the little kind of touches like this that will help you kind of reason or understand a little bit more about the product, and then just make a little bit of a better decision right in that moment when you are picking the instance that you're going to be using.
Yeah, and I think anything easier for Spot instances is key, because when customers first learn about Spot, it seems scary, and so many times it's like, oh, I would never want to use those. But then we're seeing so many customers save a lot of money using Spot instances the right way, and the easier they are to use, the more transparent the costs are. I'm trying to push Spot as much as possible.
And it's some awesome documentation, right? So like right from the console, you've got Spot placement score, which will help you kind of even gauge a better instance based on its interruption kind of likelihood, right? So instances that have a much kind of lower likelihood of interruption is going to just help you kind of have a much more extended usage of that instance. And so just use the tools. There's some really, really cool things there that are going to help you kind of be a lot more successful in having a longer running instance at a much more affordable rate.
Yeah, and to Jeff's point, it will help us or help you demystify Spot a little bit, and give you a lot more tools. And the savings here is versus the on-demand pricing. So just looking at this example here, we have 73% savings in some cases. So this is pretty incredible cost savings versus that on-demand pricing.
Can I give a quick tip? For everyone watching, you can use Spot in production.
Yes.
It is okay to use Spot in production. You have to be careful. You have to know what you're doing, but I know major companies saving a lot of money using Spot in production and being smart about it. So look, that's my tip. Look into Spot.
I don't think it's just a tip. I think it should be best practice, right? Execute. Okay. I think we want to talk about some other things that we've also added into the instance finder as well. So let's showcase some of the comparison that we've now added in as well, James.
Yeah, so you'll find this at various points in the console where if you're making decisions, like in this case, it's changing the instance type. So like there may be various reasons why you want to do that. But at that point of decision, we are able to kind of let you select a different instance. So you might have started off with the one on the left here, the M5DN, and you're looking at the C7GN for whatever reason, and you're able to bring it up and then do the side-by-side comparison to kind of look at how those attributes are different, right? And that's just going to make it a little bit easier for you to kind of start to kind of reason about this and kind of see, is that kind of what you're looking for? Is this the right one? Do you want to compare others that maybe in that family might be a little bit more optimal for your use case?
And the other thing is, for those, I think it's pretty clear here, but just so you know, we have actually bolded every place where we see a difference, Jeff. So to make it even easier to find, I mean, in this case, some things are a little more obvious. The on-demand Windows pricing is only in M5DN, but just where the difference is, you can see the two vCPU differences here in cores. We've bolded that as well, so to try to highlight and make it even easier.
All right, James, we got a question from chat from Ganesh asking, how do you cover the nuances with the new Flex instances with this tool? Or is that a concern here?
They're covered the same way as the other instances here. They're just covered like a regular instance. So you get the actual comparison that's here as well.
Okay.
And so if you had brought up a Flex instance, which I highly encourage people to try and take a look at the Flex instances as well. We don't have enough time today, given the time left here, to talk exactly about the Flex instances, but you would have the same experience for the customer, for
Thanks.
user experience.
Yeah, thanks, Ganesh, for chiming in.
Yeah, for sure. So we don't have a lot of time left, James, here, but is there any other things that we want to highlight about either console to code or the instance selection that we have added in?
Yeah, I think that the instance type catalogs that you'll see right on the left-hand navigation of the EC2 console is a great place for you to start, right? It gives you a broad selection of instances there. You're able to do that kind of side-by-side comparison across multiple instances. You check for which availability zones are, to look at the pricing. It's a great way to kind of reason about the broad set of instances. But use Instance Finder. I think it's a great place for you to start and to kind of to start your journey. It will narrow down those instances really quickly, and then leave feedback. Like this is a place that's dynamic for us as we're passionate about this. So leave those tips and feedbacks and feature requests, and this is something we'll absolutely review.
Yeah, and someone asked in chat about ways to get started and learn. We provided a pretty good answer about some of the training and stuff, but one of the things I like about these tools and getting into the console is that it is a free thing, and you can really tinker around to learn a little bit more about the console, and you can learn a lot using Q and create code and generate code here. So this is a low-cost way to get started, but it's also a way I've done a lot of learning as we've worked through this instance. I mean, we all work at AWS, but there's always something more to learn in new instances and the like, and so it's been really powerful.
So James and Art, thanks for getting up so early and joining us before the Expo Hall opens. I'm Jeff Mershek, and we are live here at AWS reInvent 2025 and 2024. And stay tuned for the Werner keynote, and we'll be monitoring chat, and we'll be back right after the keynote for a quick follow-up. So stay tuned.